Hi everybody, my name is Sadie Suter and I'm going to be talking about abortion in America for my timeline presentation. Abortion in America has been around since the 1550s. There have been many strategies women have used to complete the abortion, such as the use of herbs, the use of sharpened implements, forceful abdominal pressure, and many other ways. There have been many laws throughout the years that have prevented the access to safe abortion for women across the world. The laws preventing and criminalizing abortion have not only taken away a woman's right to choose, but allowed for unsafe abortions to take place, putting the mother's life at risk. Over time, these laws against abortion have slowly progressed, allowing women to be able to access safe and affordable abortions. Each of the events I will be speaking about today will ultimately pave the way for women's reproductive rights in America. The ALI was a group of lawyers formed in 1923 that wanted to make a change to the abortion laws in America at the time. They produced a penal code that would take away the criminalization of abortions and make them available in certain cases. Those cases include a physical abnormality of the child, if the pregnancy was a product of rape or incest, and lastly, if the mother had a physical or mental need for abortion. This law was presented in 1959 and issued in 1962. This event is beyond important for women's rights as a whole. During this time period, attitudes toward abortion were not good, and access was nearly impossible unless you were wealthy or had connections. After the issue date, nearly 19 states made reforms to their abortion laws. This not only helped to change the attitudes that surrounded abortion at the time, but also took away the criminalization of women who did have abortions. This law reform would also make sure that women were not dying or putting their lives at risk by performing unsafe abortions. This event made it possible for abortions to be legal today. The law reform from the American Law Institute paved the way for abortions today. If the American Law Institute hadn't pushed for this reform, there would still be women who were obtaining unsafe abortions and putting their life in danger. The social welfare of the women who are having abortions is impacted as well. The women who used to be able to attain abortions were wealthy women with connections, and this allowed women to receive an abortion who didn't fit in that category or couldn't afford it. They were able to do what was best for them without any repercussions, and that still stands today. My reflections on the abortion law reform, I believe that this law reform was a really big step in the right direction at the time. I think it made a huge impact on how abortions were seen then and even now. This law reform gave women the ability to have abortion, even though it was still being held under certain circumstances or cases. It was able to change attitudes, and I think this event opened up a lot of doors for abortion in America today. The next event is Griswold v. Connecticut. Griswold v. Connecticut was a Supreme Court case that took place in 1965. A male gynecologist named C. Lee Buxton and Estelle Griswold opened up a birth control clinic in New Haven. That clinic is now known as Planned Parenthood. They wanted to challenge the statute that was under the 14th Amendment. They were both arrested and convicted of violating the law. The court case was based off the question of whether the Constitution protected the right of marital privacy against the state's restrictions for a couple to be able to be counseled in the use of contraceptives. The decision of the Supreme Court case on June 7, 1965 came to a 7-2 decision and ruled that the Constitution did protect the right of marital privacy against state restrictions on contraceptives. The significance of the Supreme Court case, Griswold v. Connecticut, was major. It paved the way for reproductive privacy and freedoms. Before the Supreme Court case, contraceptives were either banned or had restrictions on them. This case allowed a married couple the use of contraceptives, which in turn paved the way for the legalization of contraceptives for unmarried couples. Another significant aspect of this case that still stands today is the clinic that was open to provide these contraceptions is what we know as Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has been the backbone of abortions, and this is how it began. The impacts that Griswold v. Connecticut had on social welfare and social services are very important and play a big role in the right to safe abortion today. It allowed for contraceptives to be used. The birth control clinic that was opened by Estelle and C. Lee is what we know as Planned Parenthood today. Planned Parenthood has played a big part in changing the way abortions are done today. Planned Parenthood is a clinic that not only offers abortion services, but also offers a multitude of other services regarding women's health and women's reproductive health. These services are provided at a very low cost and sometimes provided with no cost at all. My reflections on Griswold v. Connecticut, I think this case had a big impact to it, although this case was tricky due to the fact that the Constitution doesn't explicitly say that we have a right to privacy. It's implied, but it's not said directly. The Supreme Court decision paved the way for contraceptives to be used by everyone and not just married couples. I think this case is important because the use of contraceptives were able to help people who didn't want to get pregnant. It provided them with a safety net, which would make it less likely for them to have to get an abortion. The Jane Collective was an underground network based out of Chicago. It provided women with the counseling and the safe procedure of an abortion. This underground network was launched in 1965 by a woman named Heather Booth. She was 19 and attended the University of Chicago. At the beginning, Jane took calls to help connect women with doctors who would perform abortions. Soon after, the members of the Jane Collective started performing abortions themselves. They rented out apartments in Chicago to keep their project secret. In 1972, they were told on by a patient's sibling and were arrested and taken into custody. They were charged with 11 counts of abortion. The significance that the Jane Collective had on abortions is nothing less than heroic. Many women during this time died due to unsafe abortions. The Jane Collective took it upon themselves to provide a safe place to receive an abortion, and it was done in private. This created an outlet for women who had no other choice and no money. The Jane Collective had a huge impact on social welfare and social services. The idea behind the Jane Collective was, in my opinion, extremely similar to social welfare services today. The Jane Collective didn't want women to keep getting hurt or even putting their lives at risk by performing unsafe abortions. So they took it in their own hands to create something that not only provided safe abortions, but also at a much reduced cost. In a way, that's how a lot of social services run today, making sure the client gets what they need without allowing them to get it in an unsafe manner. My reflections on the Jane Collective made a major impact on women who were seeking abortion. It allowed women to not have to put their lives on the line in order to do something that they felt was best for them in the long run. I believe that the Jane Collective saved a lot of women from death. I feel like this event, although ending with them going to jail, was such a step in the right direction for women's reproductive health and wellness. The Jane Collective felt so passionately about this, and I think this shows that even when it was illegal at the time, there were groups that were still providing social services to help people. Roe v. Wade was another Supreme Court case that dealt with the topic of abortion. Jane Roe filed a lawsuit against the district attorney in her county in Texas, Henry Wade. She wanted to challenge the Texas law that made abortions illegal. The question this case dealt with was whether the Constitution recognized a woman's right to end a pregnancy by abortion. The Supreme Court ruled in favor of Jane Roe in a 7-2 decision. They found that the criminalization of abortions in states did in fact go against a woman's constitutional right to privacy. The significance of Roe v. Wade goes beyond measures. The first reason this case is significant is because of the fact that this case not only decriminalized abortion, but it also made it legal. Although this case paved the way for reproductive rights, and ultimately this decision paved the way for women's rights in general, this was the first time that a woman was able to have total autonomy over her own pregnancy. It's also the first time that a pregnant woman had the liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government interference or restriction. The impact of Roe v. Wade on social welfare and social services is honestly, to me, really simple. This decision allowed abortion to be a social service. It took away the unsafe at-home abortions and was able to be considered a procedure. This allowed mothers all around the world to have an option in their pregnancy and not have to be unsafe about it. I think that Roe v. Wade was a monumental case that allowed for women all over the world to have access to safe and affordable abortions. This case seriously paved the way for abortions today. And the most important thing to me regarding this case is how, for the first time, women were able to have total autonomy over their own pregnancy. And as great as that was, I think it's almost pathetic that before women weren't able to make their own decisions regarding their own pregnancy. The new abortion laws in Texas were signed into law on May 19th, 2021 by Governor Greg Abbott. These new laws are almost a total ban on abortion. This ban allows for abortions up to 6 weeks, and after that time period, it is illegal for a woman to have an abortion. This law also allows for any private citizen to sue an abortion provider or someone getting an abortion. The significance of the Texas abortion laws are detrimental. These laws take the progress of abortion laws and put it 5 steps backward. The 6-week cutoff is a problem in itself due to the very nature that most women don't even know if they're pregnant by then. This means that they're only allowed a small amount of time to decide what they want to do with their own pregnancy. Allowing any citizen to sue an abortion provider is placing enforcement into the hands of the citizens instead of the government, which is a problem in itself also. These laws make it nearly impossible for a woman to have the right to choose. The impact that these abortion laws have on social welfare is not good. These laws make it nearly impossible for a woman to have an abortion or even make the decision to choose for herself. This law is a regressor on abortion in America today. This will cause many women and teenagers to perform unsafe abortions at home, and that can also cause a mother who doesn't want a child to have one. This means that the welfare of the mother and the child are not in good shape. I believe that these laws are regressing back in time and trying to ban something that unfortunately won't stop no matter how strong the restrictions are. People are still going to perform unsafe abortions, and that is going to once again cause a multitude of injuries to these women and can even cause death. It is putting mothers who want to have an abortion in Texas at risk. I hope that this law will be overturned so we can continue in the right direction. Over the years, abortion laws have taken away a woman's right to choose. Throughout the years, events have occurred that have pushed for the grounds that took away a woman's right to choose to be challenged, and because of the people who have won those challenges, we now live in a world where there's access to safe and affordable abortions. Women have the right to choose what they want to do with their own bodies. Thank you.